or any houses, any cedar trees were out here. Well, we finally taught ourselves to fly and then moved up here. Then their grandma owned it, and she gave us permission to raid off a little strip up here. And so we proceeded up here in '73, knocking our heads together, trying to figure out radios. No reversing, no computers or nothing. Put your servos in, start flying. Radios and an old Cargo Berg Falcon 56 3-channel. And I wasn't able to drive to come out here, so Dad had to bring me out here, put the airplane in the car and stuff. So we'd get up, learn to fly, and one or two would fly off when they have to go fly. Then Mike thought, well, he's getting good enough, he's going to have a steerman. So he got him a steerman, and I think it had a Fox 78 engine on it. And this airplane had a mind of its own. It's been hung off the electric line wires down there. It started a grass fire with the electric fence. When he took off out here, you run behind the truck because you didn't know which way it was going. Well, that developed and developed. Well, then they left the little hobby shop, and him and Mary started Radio Shack in '73. And he had the hobby shop in there. And then guess who come along? This little guy. I remember him, Mary, changing his diapers behind the counter.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of Guthrie people.
Oh, yeah. So it's tiny. So we developed and went on to 4 channels and stuff, and we still, at times, we couldn't teach each other, couldn't figure out how stuff worked, you know. Then we'd have another fella that joined that worked at a lumber yard, you know. And poor Richard, he never did learn to fly. And even tried to get him to take off by putting the airplane on corrugated tin, so it tracked down the corrugated tin to take off. And that was a fiasco. It was a 3-ring circus for years. And then, yeah, we learned a lot. And then Mike got into bigger airplanes and stuff, and then he got to where he was trying to teach Michael. And I'm going to let Michael say a few words about his learning experience along with us.
Absolutely. First off, thank you all for being out here today. We've got some lifelong family friends. We've got 2 of the original club members, Jim and Calvin Ellis. I want to thank y'all so much for keeping this going through the years. Like you said, they started flying back in 1973. You can see some of these pictures over here where it was actually the dirt field. I came along, like you said, in '73. I still remember for my 6th birthday, they had their first club meeting at the library. And Jim, Calvin, my dad, and Richard Ferguson, they brought me different pieces of U-control planes. So one brought me the fuel, one brought me the plane, one brought me another piece to it, and that's how I got my start, was in the U-control. Then as you can also see from the picture, I sat out here with my dad about 7, 8 years old, and he handed me the radio and said, if you get in trouble, just hand it back. No buddy boxes, no buddy cords, no nothing. It's just he kneeled down beside me and said, here, you fly the plane. That's how I learned how to fly. I'm just so grateful that the club has continued all these years. The field is immaculate. From the pictures where it first started and what it is now, just completely incredible. One thing Jim did say, Dad was always trying something new, from airplanes going down the corrugated tin, I've heard that story many times, to helicopters. And he didn't have anybody to teach him. He just jumped out there and he said, okay, let's figure out how this thing works. We had quite a few years.
And he also flew off the dirt road. The Seward was dirt then.
Back when Seward Road was dirt, yes.
Take off on Seward Road in front of the house, underneath those big electric line wires.
Why?
Imagine what happened there with 72 megahertz.
So it's been definitely a lifelong memories. So many things that I remember growing up here on this hill with Jim and Calvin. I mean, I consider them part of the family, seriously, because they've been around me my entire life. And I want to thank you guys, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, the entire club, for keeping this going. I'd like to see more kids coming up here and starting, because, you know, that's how we're going to keep it going. But I really do appreciate it. I really do. And all the members of the club, thank you so much. Ray, Jim, Steve, I appreciate everything y'all did. everything y'all did for Dad. Dad loved y'all too. Y'all know that. So I'm going to let Mom have it for a second.
Well, I just pretty much have ditto to everyone for what these guys have said. One thing about Mike, for those of you that knew him, he loved to try anything. He was not afraid. I grew up with him as a young man and a kid, and there was nothing he wouldn't try. But he learned. Every time he did something, he learned, and he learned quickly. Didn't mean he didn't still have problems, but he always kept going. And Jim and Calvin were just little tykes when they first came in. And, it's hard to look at them now and see the guys they've become. But Mike loved flying. Whether it be a real airplane or whether it be RCs, he loved flying. But he loved coming up here on the hill and being with you guys. You have no idea how much he enjoyed that. And go ahead.
You probably don't know, but Mike couldn't hear. And he didn't know when the engine died. So I always stood out there and I said, "You're dead." And he'd done more dead stick landings than anybody had ever did here. Because you can remember the old little two-stroke 40s and 60 size, how unreliable they were. He did more dead sticks. And he got to where he could land that thing dead stick and roll it right up to you. And as you know, then when we started the club, it was just called Guthrie RC Club. And it went on down the road, then OK Sooner Squadron come in, and it was always just called Guthrie Model AirPark. Well, then we're here officially today. It's going to be changed in memory of Mike Harvey Model AirPark. And so that's the way it'll be sanctioned from now on through all the sanctions.
One more thing, just as a little bit of history. As Jim said, Mike's grandparents owned this land, and he was a instructor for World War II pilots, and she taught the ground school. And so he passed away early, and she was always an avid supporter of flying. And so when the guys wanted to have a place to fly, she was all for it. And Mike has an older brother named Quinn, and when Grandma passed away, he was kind enough to keep that family tradition going. And so, Mike thought the world of him, and I thank him for that.
Yeah, and today we rent the property from Quinn. So, and that's about all that anybody, all the other club members got some memories. Ray, Steve, Jim. He misses him.
He was an ornery little shit.
Oh yeah.